Hi, and welcome to 15 Minutes of Consulting Best Practices. I'm David A. Fields, and I am joined by my former client and now current colleague and principal at David A. Fields Consulting Group, Carol Williams. So, good morning, Carol.
Good morning, David.
And for those of you who are new, for those of you who are new or not new, welcome, Carol, because it's her first time being one of the hosts of our Monday morning Q&As. And the format here is really simple. You ask us questions, just type them in the chat here, or sometimes folks email them to us or ask in various ways, and then we give you answers that are going to help you build a more rewarding, lucrative, successful consulting practice. So go ahead and type your questions in the chat. There's a hello, John, and there's a LinkedIn user whose name we don't see, but good morning to you also. And let's see, Jaron, I think we had one left over from last week. So, Carol, why don't you go ahead and read, and I'll take this since I was here last week.
Great, can do that. So Ram submitted a question. My USP has been shaping and delivering transformation programs across sectors as it brings lots of fresh external and problem solving to my new clients. I know this is not exactly what you recommend, but I still appreciate your perspective.
Okay. So, right. This came in last week. You deliver across a lot of sectors because it brings them cross-sector thinking, and isn't that valuable? And how come I don't say you should do that? Sure, I'll give you a little bit of perspective on that, some thoughts on that. And good morning, Srikanth. I'm glad you're finding the book valuable. And Tom, greetings to you also. So why do we recommend that you focus on an industry? And the reason is because, for the most part, that's how clients look for a consultant. There's really a ton of research on this, and that's been done. There's a firm in the UK that does study every year about how clients buy. And then we have also done research on this, in part because we've had clients that are big platforms that our approach for lots and lots of consulting business. And we've been able to understand why exactly clients choose certain consultants or consulting firms. And the number one thing they're looking for, whether it's right or not, doesn't matter. The number one thing they're looking for is industry expertise. Everybody wants someone who's worked in their industry. And then they want someone who has solved the exact problem that they're facing, preferably for someone who looks exactly like them, but not quite a competitor. So, right, they're looking for the impossible. So that's why we recommend industry expertise, because that's what clients are looking for. And it allows you to develop domain expertise, allows you to become really good at what you do. If you decide to grow your firm, it also makes it easier to staff, to hire, to communicate what you do to other folks. So there are a lot of advantages to being an industry expert. Now, what I will say, and then Carol, I'll let you chime in, is if you have expertise in a very, very narrow problem, there is a person who I've referenced a few times, I think he's out in California, who's an expert in polymers and a certain challenge having to do with polymers. And any industry that happens to use polymers, he's the go-to guy. So if you have that really narrow expertise around a certain problem, then you can cross industry. But generally speaking, you're going to do better focusing on one industry. That's why we recommend it. Carol, agree, disagree? Anything you want to add?
Completely agree. That is what I have found in my experience as well. I will also add on to that there are certain industries and certain companies within industries that specifically will look for companies outside of their industry because they know their industry isn't good at something. So they want to bring in expertise from other industries that they know are further along in a certain problem solving area.
Yeah, exactly. So Ram, let us know if that answers your question. If any of you have a different point of view or you have a follow-up question, go ahead and throw it in the chat. There's already a couple questions have come in. I'll ask you the LinkedIn users question, Carol, because then Srikanth had a question specifically for me. So we'll do that second. But the LinkedIn user said, whose name we can't see, you can feel free to type in your name. What's your take on thought leadership type content in the current overload of content available everywhere? What do you think, Carol? What's your take on thought leadership content now?
That's a great question. I think well developed, thoughtful, applicable content is still relevant to being delivered. There's a ton of AI created content, but it is very purposeful, very well delivered. It'll be received very well by prospects and by your clients.
Yeah, I would tend to go in a similar direction. There's still room for thought leadership. Clients are still looking for it. Clients are still reacting to it. There is a challenge. It's harder to stand out because there is so much AI generated content. I think I saw a statistic or I heard something that there are more AI users on the internet now than humans, which is kind of crazy. At least for now, AI written content feels sort of easy to spot. And so just using AI and posting stuff out there, I think has limited value. But having a real point of view, I agree with you, Carol. I think that's valuable. So let us know whether that's helpful and answers your question. And you want to read Srikant's question?
Sure. And it was Olga, by the way, apparently one of your clients, former clients, that posted that question. I am curious to know if there are any changes to the approach you would recommend these days compared to when you first published the book.
Are there any changes I would make? There are a couple. I will obviously charge even more money, but that's not really a change. So is there anything I would change? I would rename a couple of things. Overall, there's a couple of things that have evolved. There's certainly things that have changed since I published the book. The most obvious of which is the pandemic and the rapid advent of web conversations, right, of video conversations. That all happened after the publication of the book. During the publication of the book, people still talked on the phone to each other. And we actually have a client based in the South who uses the phone to great effect. So that ancient device that many of you are not sure what it is, it can still be effective. But I would take every place where it says phone now and talk about a Zoom meeting or Teams or Google Meet or however you meet with people. That's been one obvious change where the book is slightly dated in that regard. However, it's almost all right on track. I would maybe change one of the 5 marketing musts, which are writing, speaking, networking, digital presence, and trade associations. I would recognize that trade associations is really a great example of a broader marketing must, which is alliance partners. And alliance partners, that marketing must, which had always been powerful, really came into its own after the pandemic. And so the past 2, 3, 4 years or so, it has really become even more powerful. But beyond that, it still works. And hi, Katrin from Germany. And hopefully that answered your question. If not, let us know. Looks like Shankar's got another question here. From your following up, previous spa class. Oh, good. It's good to see a spa user here. You can type in the chat because the Solo Practice Accelerator registration's open right now, and some of the people watching should probably attend. Let them know whether it was any good. And if you say it wasn't good, that's okay. You be honest. Follow-up question to your prior answer. To what extent can relationships overcome industry-specific expertise? On a 0 to 100%, they can overcome 100%. If you have a strong enough relationship, someone just trusts you to help them, they don't care about anything else because they trust you to be able to help them. They trust that you're thinking of them first. They trust that you can help them achieve their outcome and that you won't embarrass them or cause them trouble. The 3 points of the trust triangle. So 100% relationship can overcome pretty much everything, which is one reason why we're so focused on that. Carol, anything you want to add on that or disagree, or what do you think?
I would actually 100% agree with you because I am proof of that, where as a consultant, I had a very specific industry expertise, and yet I had clients that were in way different industries, and it was all based on relationships.
Yeah. So there you go. Case in point. Absolutely exactly right. And come to think of it, similarly, if I go back a couple of iterations of me, back when the firm I grew up in, when I learned consulting back in the 1920s, we were focused in a certain area. I ended up building a practice inside a practice that was focused entirely different industry because we were all CPG, consumer products or fast moving consumer goods. I went B2B, and it's because I received work, I won engagements with people who just knew and trusted me. And that allowed me to port over some of what we had been doing on the consumer goods side to B2B. All right. Oh, good. Carol, I'm going to ask this question of you. And Tom, appreciate that you use AI and then you write it yourself. That is excellent. Ray asks, is there a good way to know how much a client would pay for a particular service or engagement? Well, Carol, is there a good way?
Absolutely. You ask. That's the easiest to answer, but I will go into a little bit more detail. There are 2 to 3 great questions that you can ask them, but it needs to be part of a bigger conversation that we call a context discussion. It's laid out in David's book, but definitely asking about 6 different areas to understand them. And because you're not just going to throw out a proposal in the first conversation, you want to understand deeply what the prospect is needing and what they're looking for, etc. One of the parameters that you're going to be asking about is fee tolerance. And within that fee tolerance, you need to be asking, what is your budget or expected fee for the work that you're talking about? And then also asking the heart attack question. At what point would you have a heart attack if you saw this fee on the proposal? Ask it, or if you need to modify it a little bit to make it sound natural to you, you kind of want to make it a little bit funny. I modified it because I actually ended up saying, at what point would you fall out of a chair if you saw this on your screen when you opened up the proposal? And so they would always kind of chuckle because I think, literally envisioned themselves falling out of a chair when I said it, and it kind of helped lighten it. But I will say, one of the things to help kind of set the tone is I would explain to them, here's why I'm asking these questions. So I would preface my questions with saying, I want to make sure that I'm going to be able to give you a potential offering of how we can work together, but making sure we're not wasting your time because your time is valuable. So I want to give you at least one approach that is going to fit within the fees that you can afford and that you're willing to pay. So I have a couple questions to make sure that we can do that. Does that work for you? And they're like, absolutely. So as long as you give them that preface, otherwise it may feel a little icky, they were totally fine with that. And it worked fantastically.
Yeah. So there you go. Right. Let us know whether that helps or not. Heart attack question, testing for fee tolerance is how you get that answer. So I agree with Carol, 100%. And we missed a question, and I apologize. Kenneth, you also asked, is there any specific differences in winning clients for consultants versus coaches? There are some differences. Fundamentally, it's the same. In when you're coaching, even more so, the client tends to want to talk to the actual coach. And one big difference between coaching and consulting, especially, is coaching, there's more opportunity to give a sample, and that's somewhat common among coaches. Say, we can do a 15-minute session right now and you'll get a sense for what it's like. Or you can have one, and then if you want to dive in past that, we'll dive in past it. You can't really do sampling as much in consulting because that's not the way consulting works. So that's one real obvious difference. There are probably some others. And Shankar, thank you for the kind endorsement of the Solo Practice Accelerator. And oh my gosh, thank you for all your questions. We've managed to spend our 15 minutes. So thank you for spending 15 minutes with Carol and with me. Couple really quick things before you go. If you are a solo consultant and you've not yet come to a Solo Practice Accelerator, you're missing out. as Shankar said, it is excellent. And registration is open right now. This is the only one in 2026, so it will not be open for long. So go to that. Thank you. There it is, Jaron, and just sign up. Also, you might be connected to me, but I don't know if you're connected to Carol. So make sure you're connected with both of us. Jaron has posted the LinkedIn profile links. And finally, you wouldn't ever want to miss a chance to be here with us. So make sure you have davidafields.com/Monday Live just on your calendar. Make it a recurring appointment so you're back here with us every Monday. And that's it. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you have a fabulous week. And remember, consulting is about them. It's about your clients. It's about your prospects. So give them value and give them kindness. And we will see you next Monday. Take care, all.
Bye, guys.